First, I want you to know that Flint had planned to be here for these ceremonies and for today's celebration. He learned, however, that his mother is close to death and went to be with her and his sister in Denton. So please imagine that he's standing here with us right now, as he hoped to be, and please send metta in this difficult time. I also want to express our thanks to Kim, Joel, and the many, many Sangha members who helped prepare for, support, and work on the arrangements for this week of intensive ceremonies and our gathering for this celebration. Many of them came to Appamada before the crack of dawn to ring bells over the past month for the ancestor bows each day. We are grateful for the presence and patience of Sangha members and family and their generosity throughout this time, their love and encouragement. We actually had to close Appamada for a week, which we don't normally do. Thanks to our hosts at KMFA in this beautiful space for their tremendous support in all of this. And finally, our thanks to the larger Austin community, which has welcomed Appamada with so much warmth in its heart. So what is Dharma transmission? Dharma transmission is Zen's way of conveying the wisdom of the Buddha's teachings, the practices that have been refined, tested, and proven over 1,000 years, and the authority to teach independently and authorize future Zen teachers through entrustment and Dharma transmission. Many spiritual traditions are organized around sacred texts or books, the Bible, the Quran, the Torah of Judaism. For some, it is a collection of such texts. Sometimes spiritual authority is based on educational achievement or scholarly works. Sometimes it is through appointment or by inheritance, as when it passes from a father or mother to a child. Authority in Zen is conveyed warm hand to warm hand and is referred to as a special transmission outside of words and letters. From master to disciple, from teacher to student, it is based on a profound karmic connection as well as shared experience, teaching and learning together. This human connection forms what is known as a lineage, an unbroken line from the Buddha right down to the present day. The long line of men and women in the lineage are the grandfathers and grandmothers of each lineage holder. This Dharma transmission is especially auspicious, as it establishes a new branch in the Soto Zen lineage, originating here at Appamada. From here, through Nate's transmission, we ensure that the lineage continues, established here. That does not mean a break with traditional Soto Zen lineage in which Flint and I were transmitted, any more than a new tree branch means a break from its trunk and roots. Rather, it is nourished and supported by the trunk and roots of the tree, and it is also distinct from other branches. It is a profound responsibility and a great gift, not only to the Sangha, but to future generations of Zen students and Sanghas. Nate will be authorized to teach independently, even to open other Zen centers, to authorize both entrusted teachers and future Dharma heirs. This will establish our standing and continuity in the Zen world, both for Nate and for the Sangha. It will ensure the continuity and integrity of the authentic wisdom teachings of the Buddha as we have come to understand and live them together at Appamada. Many of you know Nate, but some may not know that he has been a dedicated Zen student of Flint and I for 10 years. He has served as head student and as Appamada's board president. Meanwhile, he's been an educational consultant for schools, school systems, and school districts around the country. He has started and built successful schools. He is married to Jess and father to Parker, who has already begun his Zen teaching career, following in his dad's footsteps. You can ask Nate for the picture of him teaching his cousin meditation. So I tell Nate he's just a placeholder. I've never had a conversation with Nate that did not begin or center around his observations, reflections, and vision for the Sangha. I can't imagine better hands to entrust this Buddha Dharma and precious Sangha to, better shoulders to assume this responsibility, better eyes to envision Appamada's future. You barely realize right now just how fortunate we are that he has taken this step on the path. His Dharma name is a reflection of all this. Shin, meaning Dharma, heart and mind, together with Nen, boundless, mindful care. The final kanji, Nen, is our Appamada kanji found above the altar, the core of our name and our principle of relational Zen, mindful, energetic care. In the end, Dharma transmission does not mean you are a perfected being, a Buddha. Your flaws become even more public, more inexcusable in the eyes of the Sangha and the world. Your weaknesses expose your vulnerabilities, which some will be quick to exploit. You have no more excuses, no one else to blame, no place to hide. And you have the responsibility for conveying the Dharma to people who, in their confusion, sometimes use you as a giant projection screen for their longings, dreams, fears, ideals, love, expectations, disappointment, distress, and rage. What Dharma transmission does mean is a commitment to serving the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha with unflagging devotion, and the unshakable vow to convey the Dharma, warm hand to warm hand, to a successor in an unbroken line that extends back to the Buddha through our Zen ancestors and forward beyond the present moment to future generations, who will surely need its wisdom, compassion, and care. I'll leave you with a poem by Canadian mathematician, writer, and activist Chandler Davis, who was born in 1926 and died in 2022. It's called Successors. On these ruins left to us, we build our home. The view from my porch includes today's maples and pines that were, and even long gone cycads. We tell our stories, which means that I could tell you my father's story, and some he'd heard before, my great-grandfather's story. Pass it on. This yard is gently touched, garden and rooftop, by faint, far starlight, and still more gently touched by cryptic spores, almost intangible. More messages come in than we can read. I cherish more than I can understand, but I have fathomed some. Pass it on. Oh, newborn mice and newborn wrens, and newborn of ours, trusting mouths open to be fed. Your trust may not be valid, but yourselves are valid. We in whom you put your faith may let you down, but we are not without faith, for we have faith in you. Pass it on.
Things a little shorter than. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Well, good afternoon. This is a first for me. I've given a bunch of Dharma talks, but I've never given one standing up. So this will be for people who are used to seeing these in the Zendo. This is a little odd. It's quite lovely to be here with all of you. And if I'm being honest, it feels a little odd. As some of you know, I give talks for a living, so that's not really where the nerves come. But I had the feeling as I was getting ready for this, and like, too many of you know me. Like, you know where the bodies are buried, you know? And unfortunately, some of you have seen me streak bare-bottomed through the middle of Bible study. I was 3, so that was 44 years ago. Mom, Dad, sorry about that. But mostly I'm just grateful to be here with all of you. I see family and dear friends, both here and online, Zen folk and non-Zen folk alike. And I'm grateful for the deep connections that I've had and people in this space, for friendships that have spanned more than 20 years and ones that are just starting to bloom now. Um, I'm so thankful for all the people who I've partnered with at Appamada on the councils, on the board, in various roles together. And I'm particularly grateful for the love and support of my family, who are probably puzzled by this whole Zen thing, but who love me anyway and support me as I do it. And I'm particularly grateful for the immense care of my wife and my kiddo, Jess and Parker, who are here. Jess, I'm pretty sure that this was not what you're envisioning after our first date over tacos at radio, but this is how it's gone down. And I'm particularly thankful for Peg and for Flint, and for all of their teachings over the years. And I would ask that we just take a moment to hold Flint in our hearts, and hold his family in our hearts for just a second, and offer metta or prayer for them as they face the passing of Flint's mom. Thank you. So at the close of an intensive many years ago, somebody said, I think it was you, Shish, that we won the cosmic lottery in having Peg and Flint as teachers. And I think that's really the truth. And it still holds true, and it's kind of humbling and surreal to see my name now following yours and Flint's on our lineage documents. It's kind of strange. And in fact, I start to think like, maybe somebody's made a mistake. Like maybe there was a clerical error and somebody else is supposed to be here giving this talk. But before we do anything else, I'd like to do a little thing from my spiritual tradition before Zen. Some of you may know this as passing the peace. In the churches I grew up in, we just called it saying hi to one another. So if you haven't had a chance to, and maybe there's somebody behind you you don't know, would you just turn and say hello and say good afternoon, introduce yourself, give a handshake, something, say hello. So it's good to be with one another, especially in days when our social fabric feels like it's so easy to fray and so easy to pull apart. And so we might do well to remember how much we need each other. And from a certain point of view, we might remember that we actually are one another, but that's a different Dharma talk. But so here we are on this occasion of transmission, which the Bodhidharma famously described as occurring outside of words and letters. And so I'm going to honor this occasion by putting forth a whole bunch of words and letters, which seems a little bit awkward. But I'm thankful that Zen relishes a good paradox. And in fact, a senior student of Suzuki Roshi said of his teaching, well, if it's not a paradox, it's probably not true, or at least it's not Zen. Real practice feels like opposing things being true at once a lot of the time. So I'll invite us into paradox a little bit, and forgive me if these fingers wagging at the moon miss their mark a little, but I'll do my best. If I'm being honest, it's a little strange to be here. I never set out to become a Buddhist. A Zen teacher now, apparently, officially stamped, sewn, and with the inked silks to back it. I assure you, I'm as surprised as anyone. As some of you know, as part of the transmission ceremonies that we do, the Deshi, me, inks the names of the Zen ancestors on a series of silks, which serve as the official documents of transmission. Those silks name an array of spiritual heavyweights, all the way back to the Buddha, folks like Bodhidharma, Tozan Ryokai, Heihei Dogen, Joko Beck, Koan Syverson, Koshin Sparks, and now me. It's humbling and frankly a little mortifying. But as Peg said to me many years ago when I was vexed by some other challenge, about a matter. He said, "You're the one who's here. Just carry the water." And so I'm here, aspiring to the model of Layman Pang, who said, "My supernatural power and marvelous activity, drawing water and carrying wood, just doing the thing that needs to be done." Truthfully, I'm not sure how I got here. As best I can recall, a mere 14 years ago or so, I was living my best life in New York City, with nary a thought of enlightenment in my mind. In fact, my life was chock full of all sorts of unenlightened activity, as much as one could muster as a single Manhattanite. On the surface, the approach appeared to be working. I earned the big wig title I'd been pining for. I had good friends and enough dates to keep my ego inflated. It should have been glorious, but I was joyless. Nothing measured up, nothing satisfied. I didn't know it at the time, but I was living inside of the truth of the Buddha's truths of dukkha and its cause, the dissatisfactory nature born of craving. And as I've mentioned once before in a previous talk, it all bottomed out one night at a dive bar where I found myself far too sober for my liking, staring at a Sharpie scrawl above a urinal that said something like, "You chose the poopy life you're complaining about." I'm editing here because there are children present, so you can fill in what poopy is actually about, but you can translate. So yes, you chose the life that you're complaining about. Whether that's exactly what it said almost doesn't matter. That's how I remember it. And in the moment, as I heard those words, it landed. And I remembered that at that moment, I had the sense of what I would describe later of being truly caught in a self-centered dream. And I didn't just see it, I felt it. All at once, a sudden grief at the life I'd been clinging to. That night, I had a deeply unsettling experience, what I might call in retrospect a Kensho experience, but without the support of practice. The best I can describe it as is falling through myself. It was disorienting, destabilizing, and deeply needed. So I left the bar early, went home, and just broke down. Not out of self-pity, but out of recognition. Without the usual defenses, the honesty of a real life, of life fiercely as it is, outside of my pretending, cracked something open. Over the next months, I began a halting spiritual inquiry. I started journaling and praying a little bit. I tried to meditate unsuccessfully, stumbling through books by Pema Chodron at my sister's recommendation, C.S. Lewis and Deepak Chopra. And then an old friend resurfaced at the right moment. And when he met, he carried a steadiness that I didn't remember, which he attributed to Zen. He left and life resumed, but somehow Zazen, or sitting practice, followed me. I couldn't have told you why just sitting came to matter, but it fed something in me that had been starving. And maybe some of you have had that experience. Before long, I was driving a burnt orange Chevy Cruze across the country to a place I had only visited once before, where I only knew one person, a strange land called Austin. So it's y'all's fault I'm here, by the way. And by y'all, I mean Appamada. Specifically, it's Peg's fault. While I was here visiting before moving, Peg gave a Dharma talk about something which I remember nothing of. I do not remember a single word of the talk. But I remember the way that she laughed with something that felt like freedom in her voice. And I remember the warmth still and presence of those who in that room, some of you who are in this room. I remember knowing that I wanted to know more about what was moving there. And I remember this weird flicker of a voice in my mind that said, home. Which is weird. I was living in New York City. New York City is a pretty cool place. But Appamada has been my home ever since. You all in this community have been my home. I should also say that it's Flint's fault that I am here as well. I remember attending my first inquiry with Flint. Again, no idea what he said, nothing. But I remember his presence. I remember his fluid gait, his elegant bow, and I remember his care. Even as one hiding out in the back of the room, his care was luminous and arresting. And as I exited the Zendo, put my shoes back on, and walked out to my car, I remember being awestruck, thinking, what the fork was that? Editing again for children, so you can but I was, and like Peg's laugh, I wanted to know what that was. What was the thing? So somewhere along the way, it dawned on me that none of this happened by individual action or force of will. I didn't muscle my way into a new life. I was met into one. I was met by teachers, by friends, by places, by small moments of grace and collapse. And as I began to see that more clearly, everything shifted. So Suzuki Roshi describes one of the effects of practice like walking in a fog. You do not know that you are getting wet, but as you keep walking, you get wet little by little. When you get wet in a fog, it is very difficult to dry yourself. So there's no need to worry about progress. I just looked up one day and was, oh, I'm drenched. How did that happen? So now here I am, drenched in the Dharma, if you will. So as part of this transmission process, a bunch of folks have been asking me questions, lots of them over the past year, and particularly in the past month. So in order to answer your questions, at least the three most repeated questions, I have developed an FAQ. I'm calling this the transmission FAQ. Question number one. This has been the most common question that I've received over the past few weeks. How are you feeling? Here are some of the various replies that I've offered. I told Dan, who I think is maybe online for this one. It's been like going through a meat grinder, but not in an unpleasant way. When I responded similarly to John Eric's question on a walk home from supper ceremonies earlier this last week, he said, with perfect solemnity, ah, yes, benevolent meat grinder. And we exploded in laughter together. On another occasion, I think I was talking to Jessica and I said, oh, I'm just being reconfigured at a subatomic level, but how are you? How's them? And when I got home after the Denbo ceremony late last night, Jess asked me the same thing, and I said, probably what is truest. I don't know. And then I paused, and I kissed her, and we went to bed. It was late. It's not that I didn't know what to say because I couldn't say words. Clearly, I have those. But because the question had lost its frame of reference. What is it that could possibly lay claim to knowing how it feels? The best words this body-mind can offer might have been that it's been quiet at points, loud at others. It's been intense, this transmission, beautiful and profound. And it's been many lifetimes in a single week. That's what I might say. Question number two on the FAQ. What are you doing exactly? To which my first cheeky reply was double top secret Zen stuff. There is a sense that you can't talk about things, both because of this sort of aforementioned ineffability challenge, but also because some things needn't be said. There's a sense of privacy and form about some of these things. That said, here are some of the other replies that I offered to folks in this room and elsewhere. I said, I'm being a Buddha, bowing to many Buddhas. There's a lot of bowing. I'm inking miles of silk. It's not literally miles, but it felt like miles of silk. I'm staring down every facet of my conditioning formed since birth and probably before. And then more honestly, I said, I have no idea. See your response to question one, how are you feeling? Here's one glimpse that I can give of what I was doing. On the first Sunday after some initial entrance ceremonies requesting permission to copy our lineage documents, I began copying the Kechimiyaku, our lineage chart. It's silk, 17 inches wide and 6 feet long, to be inked with ink, black and red. As Peg said to me while she was setting up the materials, yep, feels very permanent, doesn't it? And then she left. Good luck, she tossed out as she walked by. I'd like to tell you that I rolled out the silk with a flourish and picked up my calligraphy pen with perfect equanimity. But I just took the precepts again, so that would be quite unbecoming to lie. What I immediately thought of as I took up the ink to practice, when I practiced silk, to try and get it right, was my 4th grade report card. Back then, as I recall it, the grades we got were either S's or N's. S's for satisfactory, and you could even get some S pluses, or N's. And across my report card in fourth grade, Mr. Kistenmacher, still remember, all of them were S's and even some S pluses, except for one lowly N next to penmanship. So I was like, ah. Oh. So that came back to mind as I was setting up to ink these beautiful silks, one and only time. And I'd like to tell you that I've grown in this department in the past 37 years, but no, my wife can confirm that my penmanship is still awful. But I heard a voice in my mind that some of you have heard too, and it was Flint. And he just said, how simple can you let this be? How simple can you let this be? And it was liberating. Just then I practiced, then I inked, line by line, name by name, just letting things be simple, stroke after stroke, until I made my first mistake, which came quickly. And then my conditioned flex went like this, and I kind of pulled the ink away. And then I heard Flint again, but this time he was channeling Suzuki Roshi, who said, Zen is one continuous mistake. And then my voice entered with a little modification that I'll offer you. Zen is one continuous wholehearted mistake. And so I kept inking imperfectly, but wholeheartedly. Also, it's worth noting that we're an immense amount of bowing, like hundreds of bows a day. And my quiet fear ever since getting to our Zendo is honestly that I would knock something off the altar. I was afraid that I couldn't move with Flint's elegance or Todd's ease. But with the jerking lumbering of a kind of elephant trying to do ballet, that's what it feels like sometimes. Nonetheless, this elephant danced and bowed imperfectly and wholeheartedly. Question number 3, what exactly is transmitted? And for the Zen folks in the room, you go, uh-oh. There are hundreds of koans and teachings that have wrestled exactly with this question, which is exactly impossible to answer with words. So the best response I can come up with is I can't really say. And by this, I mean how a mother of 3 can't really reply to a question from a guy who's about to be a dad for the first time of, what is it like to be a parent? You could say something, but it's not even going to come close to the mark. And you can read The Happiest Toddler on the Block or do all your developmental psych. It's not going to get you ready. Perhaps the same thing could be said about marriage. I remember a conversation with a friend who was about to get married. And he said, we've been dating and living together for years now, so I really don't think it's going to be any different. I remember smiling at him and saying, we'll see. 6 months into his marriage, I asked how things were going. He just replied, different. So parenting, marriage, practice, sure, we can speak about them and we will, but in truth, they can only be enacted, embodied. So I can't really say what it is that's transmitted, but I'm going to try anyway. And while the what of transmission is difficult, the how of it might be a little more accessible. As part of this transmission practice, these documents kind of come vertically and horizontally. Kechimaku, as I mentioned before, some of you have seen the blood vein that runs through the names, through the generations, through our ancestors, and circles back to the Buddha. You've seen a version of it that we use in our Jukai ceremonies. And it expresses our reverence for the teachings that have been miraculously passed down through us through all these frail human body minds. And for a long time, I thought of lineage as retrospective, as looking backwards. But then I thought about it as forward-facing too. I actually thought of my father-in-law, David, who's here today, who inherited a professional legacy from his father and then carried it forward with his children, who now work in the same space and carry that a tradition and legacy of craftsmanship forward. And maybe the grandkids will jump into the business too at some point. We don't know. We'll see. But moving forwards and backwards, and really in a host of other directions with wild aliveness, that's what this is all about. But there's more than just continuity. There's also a nowness in the ceremonies. And sometimes there's a suddenness and immediacy of presence. Within the lineage documents, there's also an expression of this kind of horizontal connection. It's the meeting in time, the ritual proof for the Dharma era, the warm hand to warm hand authorization from teacher to heir that demarcates a moment, just being present right here. And as I was inking these silks slowly over days, I found myself both in the flow of all that is continuous in the lineage, while immersed in the particularity of the present moments. There was and isn't really a difference or a toggling. There's just both at once. And this is what I wanted to share with you. How our lineage speaks to the continuity and flow of life, and how presence snaps us out of our deluded reveries. It's my sense that this very ceremony and this life writ large are all happening at this dynamic crisscrossing of continuity and presence. But what is it that is both continuous and immediate? Here's how I'd answer that now. Wisdom and compassion are continuous and immediate. There might be ways that the vertical and horizontal, these actually might be the ways that the vertical and horizontal take shape in a human life, handed down through the old ones who cleared the path, and handed across by people with whom we practice, love, struggle, and wake up. First, there's a continuity of wisdom that comes from our lineage. We participate in something deep and ancient, but it's also deeply relational. One morning at the end of Busarai, the ceremony in which we chant the names of the ancestor, Peg leaned over to me and said, looking at the names of the women and men ancestors, these are no longer your ancestors. They are your Zen grandmothers and grandfathers. And I immediately got choked up. In part because I saw my son, Parker, and I saw his Lito and his Lita, and I saw his grandma and his grandpa, and the tenderness with which they engage with Parker. And thinking of the teachings as being handed down in that way was very heart-opening, to say the least. And so I wondered how that might land for you. So I wanted you to try this. I want you to think of a beloved grandparent, grandmother, grandparent, grandfather, or elder in your life who is dear to you. You can close your eyes if you want. And imagine him or her saying the following teachings from our lineage. Have that person fully in mind. And imagine them saying, when you are laughing, you are laughing. When you are crying, you are crying. If you try to get something out of it, you miss your life. Or maybe your grandmother was more like this. Life always gives us exactly the teacher we need at every moment. This includes every mosquito, every misfortune, every red light, every traffic jam, every obnoxious supervisor. That's Joko. Dogen. A fish swims in the ocean no matter how far it swims. There is no end to the water. A bird flies in the sky no matter how far it flies. There's no end to the sky. And then Joko again, because this one is a teacher. Everything that disappoints us is a kind friend. Okay, you can open your eyes if you've got them closed. Feels different, doesn't it, when it's like your grandma telling you these things? Or a grandparent that you love and hold dearly? And maybe that's how things start revealing themselves in this tender way. Our forms, too, are a way of that lineage of this wisdom continues in embodiment. They remind us of the practice must be embodied. Our bows when doing full prostrations, or in gasho, with our hands together. If we allow it, it's a way that our bows become a way of meeting everything and of connecting with those who came before. And when we bow this way, we bow to those who came the same as those before us bowed, not as an act of imitation. It is the same stream they stepped into. There's also, of course, the suddenness and nowness of wisdom, and there's a crisp nowness. It's sharp, it suffers no fools. Like Manjushri's sword, it cuts through delusion. And my hunch is that many of you have experienced that on the cushion, or in connection with a teacher or wise spiritual friend. For me, I recall countless such moments with some people in this room and with my teachers. At one point early in my days of Appamada, I went to Peg for practice discussion about some sort of perceived ill. And she simply replied, "Oh, and how should it be?" And I was content to tell her how it should be in great detail. And then she said, "And how is it really?" after listening to my tirade. At which point, it shut me up real quick. Because in that moment, she just sliced right through everything. And I saw that through these complaints, I was fashioning a self that could just drop away. I don't remember how I replied to you then. Probably something like, "Yeah, right. Bow, and I'm out." On another occasion, a couple years ago, I met Flint for a practice discussion after one of those special experiences that can occur on the cushion. You know, the ones you're not supposed to make a big deal about, but your ego likes to make a big deal about. I'd been spinning in my brain about it for a day at an intensive, and I finally got to practice discussion. He just said, "Yep, sounds like you got a download." That was it. And like that, whoosh, all the drama went out of it. There was nothing to cling to. Wisdom seems to live like that, just here in the present. And then there are those forms again. John Cooley and I were talking at one point about with great aliveness, about what's available in a bow. That was a question we were entertaining. Take the instance of Gaucho, for instance. Gaucho grants us a little dignity. It isn't self-shrinking, it's upright, it's steady and human. Two hands meeting is the body's own reminder that separation is optional. And when you use the gesture at thresholds, entering the zendo, greeting someone, beginning or ending a period of practice, we learn to mark our life with attention. Pause here, feel this, let this moment be complete. The other quality that I noticed is that this quality of compassion. So let's return to that grandmotherly mind or grandfatherly mind, grandparent mind. Recall that person again. Close your eyes or not, that's okay. But I want to hold this person not as an idea or an aspiration. Let's hold this compassion as something that arises in the real fabric of relationship and care. So hear the following words in the voice of that same parent or elder. How we are with each other is the whole teaching. We train our mind to embrace what's hard instead of trying to get rid of it. When we train our mind to embrace what's hard instead of trying to get rid of it, we have begun to walk a path of growth, happiness, and true resilience. Another. If you want to find the meaning of compassion, look into the eyes of a person you usually ignore. And last, from the Buddha directly, as a mother protects her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. So if we listen closely, these voices don't stand alone. They belong to a stream of care that has been handed down from teacher to student, from person to person. In grandmotherly mind and grandfatherly mind, compassion is not a principle, but it's a transmission. It comes to us in the same way, through relationship, through connection, through a willingness to stay with what we would rather turn away from. And practice of compassion also emerges suddenly and in relationship. If left to just teaching of words, it dies. So just this morning, Parker, who had snuck up into our room at some point, I don't know when, I just rolled over and he was kicking me. So he was there in the middle of the bed. He was nestled in between Jess and I, and he woke up before each of us. And he asked if he could get up and go downstairs, didn't you? Yep. Yeah, he's smiling. Okay. And before he left, he said, "Dad, you can use my pillow. It's folded over how you like." And then he noticed I'd been tossing and shuffling around with my pillows. And he said, "Love you," and shot off. I think he has compassion down pretty well. Appamada has been a bastion of compassion for so many of us. Think about how many tender, tear-filled moments you've had with a teacher, with a friend who has stayed with you in a dark moment of the soul. Think about those who've appeared unexpectedly with meals after surgery, or left you herbs in your mailbox when you've been throwing up for 3 days. Think about those who've been blunt with you when you needed to hear something true and who had the courage to kick the crutches out from underneath you when you were ready to walk but too scared to. Consider how many have stayed with you in your upsets. A couple of years ago, this is fresh, so a few weeks after after the anniversary of the death of my nephew, I was doing my best to stay upright. We had some friends over, people who were in this room. And out of nowhere, somebody asked about the painting we have of Andrew on our wall. And I collapsed. But before I knew what was happening, before I could keel over, my dear old friend, Shish, shot across the room. And put his arms around my shoulder and just held me. He didn't offer false consolation or platitudes. He just met me. He held me and let me weep. He expressed with his presence a truth known by the poet Naomi Shibnai. Before you can know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. There, together, heartbroken, hearts open. So, what is transmission like? If you got nothing else out of this talk, remember that it's like being in a benevolent meat grinder. And if I could give you a clean spiritual answer, but the truth is it's closer to something like a beautiful mess, a strange meeting with the ancestors who welcome you with open arms as you find yourself being dissolved in the nicest possible way. And this occasion of transmission is for all of us. Transmission's meaning lives in the web of relationship that makes Sangha what it is. Every friendship, every early morning bell, and particularly in the last month, very early morning bells. Thank you for being there with me. Every shared silence, that's what's being honored here today. If anything has been transmitted, it's because the Sangha has been transmitting it all along through your practice, your care, your constancy, your willingness to keep showing up for one another. This is our ceremony. So to honor that as we close, I'd like us to invite you to consider doing one thing together, and then I'll offer a blessing of sorts to close us out. I'd like us to invite you to make a Sangha mala. A mala, for those who don't know, is a simple string of beads like this, the one around my wrist. 108 beads, precisely. And at Appamada, in our practice, we don't use them for too many ceremonies, but many of us wear them as a little reminder to be mindful. In fact, this is my favorite mala for that reason. I was telling Stephanie outside, it pinches my arm hair like every 10 seconds. So it's like, wake up, wake up, wake up, be mindful. You can't help but be a little nudged. But outside, we've set up a little station with a string and some beads, and you're welcome, if you feel like it, to go and offer and drop a bead on the line and offer a blessing for Appamada, for one of our teachers, for Flint's mom, for Aaron, for someone. Nothing too fancy, just something simple. You're welcome to offer one. And kids are included in this one. You can drop one too, help them do that. And my hope is that we'll keep this mala at Appamada and maybe let our head students each practice period choose to wear it if they so desire. But But it's always been all of us beating the same thread, one life at a time. And I thought just dropping that bead with that little intention might be nourishing for you. As I was closing out things yesterday with Peg, really tired in ways I can't explain, something of an altered state, I was thinking about what is my wish for Appamada right now? What might our blessing be? And here's what I came up with. May we delight in our true nature, refresh ourselves in the teachings, and enliven one another as we do. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for putting so much care and thought into this. Thank you for my wife, to the ridiculous cake and flowers outside that she made by hand. You'll see in a minute. I was like, holy moly. Thank you for those who came and rang the bells with me. Thank you for your love and your practice. It all matters so much more than you know. Thank you very much.
Nate, I wrote this a week ago in anticipation. You can't hear? I wrote this a week ago in anticipation of you becoming transmitted, and observing you in the last week and ringing bells and hearing this beautiful talk. I see that it has happened. We hereby invite you to serve as a senior teacher at Appamada, together with Flint Sparks and Peg Syverson. You are the succession to the gift of Appamada that has been bestowed to us. You are the next generation, the next ancestor. As we immerse our bodies and minds deeply in the way, as we enter the merciful ocean of Buddhist teaching, and as you guide us in bringing harmony to all beings, free of hindrance, we embody your conviction and understanding of the Dharma. We look to you in your diverse wisdom and experience to help guide us into the next moment. We are confident that you will be our captain as our ship traverses the boundless ocean of Buddha's way and carries the Dharma forward. We trust that you will accept this invitation with the same courage and clarity that you have continually shown in your own practice and teaching. With gratitude and respect, we bow to you, Nathan, Hoshin, Conan, Smalley, to accept this invitation.
Hi, Nathan. I just wrote this morning. So, can you hear me now? Ugh, that's too bad. Okay. So, you're already a seasoned teacher from your professional work. And that makes you a wonderful candidate as our teacher at this time. Not so long ago, I don't know if you remember this, but you and I had either coffee or lunch together. And you told me how you were feeling about Appamada and the path. You said that after your last trip to Hawaii with Flint, you clearly realized that this path was it, and that you really wanted to be more involved. You wanted to dedicate yourself in a much more sustained and serious way. At the time, I remember feeling so happy by your words, and I could feel your sincerity. Since then, you have demonstrated this commitment by your dedication to Appamada. not just with your physical presence, but also in the way you have showed up, how you have presented yourself since then. You have shown yourself to be dedicated to this path in a way you talked about, and you have proved yourself as a true leader for the Sangha as a whole. You are solidly here. This is what we need now. So please, will you take on this role of head teacher along with Peg and Flint? Please take on this role of lead teacher.
Best. Please help me.
Nate. It seems that Buddhist centers and Zen centers are places that attract people who are looking for something. People who feel that something's missing. They're seeking. And that's how we all arrived there, even if we struggle to remember sometimes. It's so important what they meet when they arrive. Not necessarily who they meet, but what they meet. I'm so glad that you've stepped forward to do this, because you really embody the type of presence and teaching that I would want someone to meet. As confusing as this can be at times, it's really not that hard, right? Someone has to open the door. Someone has to ring the bell. It's really nice if they smile when they do it. Will you please continue to do it? I beg you.
Do my best. Please help.
Nate, what I hear in your words, what I see in your presence is that you are ready to lead us as we discover over and over again that what we are seeking, what Todd was talking about, is within us, and that we have access to it all the time. Please continue to teach us.
My best. Please help.
Nate, on behalf of the Appamada Board of Directors, and I'm sure the whole Sangha, I want to first congratulate you on taking this profound and important step in your own spiritual journey. It's also an important step for us as a Sangha, and I think I speak for everyone when I say it is a step that we are taking with great joy. We welcome you as a senior teacher, and we look forward to working with you and to being both nourished and challenged by your wisdom and your teachings. I also want to thank you for stepping up and offering yourself to the Sangha in this way. We are grateful for your commitment to Appamada and your willingness to serve in this new role. And I believe it's traditional at times like this to thank your family, to thank Jess and Parker in particular for their willingness to share you with us. So thank you, Jess and Parker, and really all of Nate's whole family. It's so wonderful to have you here with us today. Finally, on behalf of the Board of Directors, I want to pledge to you our support and commitment to continuing to make Appamada a strong and vibrant Sangha. You know this because you served as board president just before me, but the board's focus is on the organizational strength and well-being of Appamada. And we do that alongside of and in support of all of the teachers who together are guiding us as Flint, along the path, as Flint says, of waking up and growing up. So on this truly momentous day, Nate. Congratulations. Thank you. We are with you.
Please stand up. We will do 2 bows together.
Congratulations, Nate.